Thank you. I yield back.
Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Smith, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rosenstein, I am concerned that the special counsel may be casting too wide of a net, that he is trying to catch all the fish in the ocean, not just the Soviet sharks. And if the special counsel were to obtain information not directly related to Russian interference with the election, and he wanted to investigate that further, would he need to obtain your authority to expand the investigation?
Yes, he would.
Okay. Has he ever asked to expand the scope of the investigation?
I appreciate that question, Congressman. If I could explain briefly, there are a lot of media stories speculating about what the special counsel may or may not be doing. I know what he's doing. I'm appropriately exercising my oversight responsibilities, and so I can assure you that the special counsel is conducting himself consistently with our understanding about the scope of his investigation.
Right. That really wasn't my question. My question was, has he asked you or consulted with you about a desire to expand the investigation beyond the original scope?
Well, the consultation actually is much more detailed than that. He consults with me, and his office consults with me about their investigation both within and without the scope. So I know what they're authorized to do.
Yeah, I know you know what they're doing, but has he requested to expand the scope of the original jurisdiction?
The scope of the original jurisdiction, as you know, is publicly set forth in that order, but the specific matters are not identified in the order. So I discussed that with Director Mueller when he started, and we've had ongoing discussion about exactly what is within the scope of his investigation. And to the extent there was any ambiguity about it, he's received my permission to include those matters within his investigation.
So he has asked to expand the scope, and you've given him permission?
Well, yeah, you're characterizing it as an expansion. As I said, it's a clarification in most cases, but he understands that this is a special counsel. It's not an independent counsel, and I'm accountable for what they're doing, and I need to know what they're doing.
Yeah. Clarification may be an expansion, and we may be caught up on the meaning of those words. But I do think, regardless, I think the American people have a right to know if the original jurisdiction has been expanded. Do you agree with that?
The difficulty, Congressman, is that I have a responsibility not to talk about what's being investigated, and that's why the original order doesn't identify any persons or charges,
right.
But we know what's under investigation.
Right. I'm not asking you to go into any specifics or to name names or to even talk about the subject, just whether or not the request had been made to expand it. You said you've clarified his jurisdiction. I assume that that would involve an expansion, as you suggested.
I want to make sure I'm 100% accurate, and I'll need to check and get back to you as to whether or not we considered particular issues to be a clarification or an expansion.
Okay.
But whatever it may be, I'm responsible for, and I know what he's investigating.
Okay. Please do get back to me on the difference between those two. Do you feel that the special counsel is authorized to investigate the personal finances of the Trump family members?
Congressman, that would implicate the concern that I've expressed, that we just don't talk about what's under investigation. So I hope you don't draw any inference pro or con. We're simply not going to discuss it.
Well, do you think the personal finances come under the original jurisdiction of direct involvement of Russian interference with the election?
I certainly appreciate your concern, Congressman, but I hope you appreciate my position that if I start answering what is and isn't, I've gone down that road that I just don't want to go down of discussing what's under investigation. There have been 4 persons who have been charged. Those are known, and ordinarily the Department of Justice, that's what we publicize. If we charge somebody with a crime, we publicize it. If we don't charge anybody with a crime, we don't talk about it.
But some of the people charged have been charged with crimes not directly connected to Russian interference with the election.
The crimes with which they're charged are publicly known.
Okay. So, in other words, you do feel that the special counsel can go into the personal finances not connected to Russian interference?
I hope I've been clear, Congressman. I am not commenting on the scope of the investigation.
All right. What about, can the special counsel investigate the personal actions of staff unconnected to the Russian interference with the election?
Only if I determine that it's appropriate for him to do so.
Okay, so that's your determination, not the special counsel's.
As I said, Congressman, I know what he's doing. If I felt he was doing something inappropriate, I would take action.
Right. Let me just maybe summarize by saying that I think the American people deserve to know who is being investigated and why. I have one final question in my last couple of seconds here. As you know, and as many of us know, in the Lawyer's Code of Ethics, attorneys are supposed to avoid not just the actual impropriety itself, but the appearance of impropriety. The special counsel has hired at least 8 attorneys who have direct connections to either the Obama or Clinton campaigns. Don't you think that creates an appearance of impropriety? And I'm not saying whether you think they can do their jobs. Don't you think it creates an appearance of impropriety?
I suppose
The
to some
time
extent,
of the gentleman has expired. The witness is permitted to answer the question.
I do not believe, I'm not aware of any impropriety. We do have regulations. The special counsel is subject to all the department's rules and subject to oversight by the department, including the Inspector General. I'm not aware of any violation of those rules by the special counsel employees.
So you don't think it creates the appearance of impropriety?
Well, appearance is to some extent in the eye of the beholder. We apply the department's rules and regulations in making the determinations, and we do have career ethics advisors who provide us counsel about that.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenstein. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Lofgren, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Rosenstein, for being here with us today. You're a career attorney in the department, isn't that right?
I would say I was a career attorney.
Was a career
Yes.
attorney. You've spent your whole life working for the people of the United States as a career attorney until you were asked to fulfill the current function that you're
Well, as a
performing.
U.S. attorney, I was a political appointee, so for the past 12 years, I've been a political appointee. 15 years prior to that, I was a career attorney.
So let me ask you, in taking a look at the individuals who are working on the matters that we are discussing, are they career attorneys in the department who are working on this?
Some of them are, Congresswoman. Under the regulation, the special counsel is permitted to request the detail of attorneys in the department who he believes will be helpful. He also has authority to hire attorneys from outside the department, and he's used both approaches.
So wouldn't they be subject to the principles, the merit system principles in the Civil Service Reform Act?
Yes, I believe they are.
So, you know, we've been on the committee here for a long time, and I remember back in 2008, there were allegations that the Department of Justice had used politics as a basis for hiring and firing in the department. And the Office of Inspector General and the Office of Professional Responsibility issued a report outlining the impropriety of using politics in personnel decisions. One of the things they said was that the department's policy on non-discrimination includes the Department of Justice needs to seek to eliminate discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, marital status, political affiliation, age, and the like. So wouldn't that policy be governing the actions of the individuals working on this? You couldn't discriminate based on this whole list, including their political affiliation.
Congresswoman, one of the advantages that I bring to the job is having been in and around the department for a while. I've seen mistakes that have been made in the past, and that is precisely one of the issues that I've discussed with our political appointees, that we're not going to do that we are not going to improperly consider political affiliation with regard to career employees of the department.
Thank you very much. You know, I wanted to ask about a couple of concerns, and you may or may not have responsibility for this. If so, just let me know. I am concerned that the department has had a change in position on certain important voting rights issues. One has to do with the purging of rolls in Ohio. The department had previously argued against purging those rolls because the National Voter Registration Act prohibits the purging of voters simply because they haven't voted in a given period of time. And it's my understanding that the department is now arguing that Ohio can purge individuals from rolls even without evidence that they have moved. Additionally, the department had argued that the state of Texas ID law had discriminated against individuals, and that the department has changed its position on that, and the law is currently drafted probably excludes up to 600,000 Americans from being able to vote because of the the draconian ID laws. Can you give us any insight into why the department changed its position on these key voting rights issues?
Congresswoman, I'm generally familiar. I don't know all the details of both of those matters, but as a general matter, it's important to understand that the ultimate determination about what the law means is made by a judge. Department officials obviously need to make a decision based upon a good faith analysis of the facts and the law, what position to take. It may be that new leadership of the department takes a different position, but I can assure you that's based on a good faith analysis, and there may be legitimate ambiguity in some of these provisions. And we are responsible for making our determination just like the prior administration made theirs, but ultimately it'll be up to a judge to decide what that law means.
Let me just ask a final question. It's my understanding that under the order appointing him, Mr. Mueller has the authority to investigate matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation, which would include crimes uncovered while he is investigating the main mission. So, for example, if he is looking at the Russia investigation and he finds out that the person he's looking at committed a bank robbery, he isn't required to ignore a bank robbery. Would that be a fair assessment of his responsibilities?
It's a fair assessment.
The time of the gentlewoman has expired. Mr. Rosenstein may answer the question.
Congresswoman, it's important to recognize, because it's a special counsel, not an independent counsel, those issues are worked out with the department, so in the event that he came across evidence that was not appropriate for him to prosecute, he could refer it to other components of the department. So we wouldn't allow something like that to slip through the cracks, but we would make sure to route it to the appropriate prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes